Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Youre and I talk about love, life and faith. And today I'm going to be sharing content that's a bit unusual from what I'll normally talk about. Although it's content that I love to talk about, but it's not like I know you guys get. So I'm going to be talking about my journey as a Christian creative. For those of you that don't know, I have many nicknames. One of them is ATZL, but another one is Lord Storyteller. I love to tell Christian stories. And so my team is just going to be throwing some questions to me and I'll try to answer them. So if you're interested in the Christian creative space, if you're a creative in any way, if you're a musician like me, I'm not a musician. Why is everybody laughing when I said if you're a musician like me? Okay, I'm serious now. If you're like an instrumentalist like if you're a writer or a filmmaker like me, or an instrumentalist or a musician or a creative in any way, this video is for you. I hope you learn a couple of things, a thing or two from my journey. So I'm going to be taking some questions. So shoot, number one question. God created the heavens and the earth. This question, how did I start? Okay. I think in some ways I'm still at the beginning of some aspects of my journey, so it's a multifaceted question. But I would say that I've always loved stories. I've always loved writing. Writing for me was first a hobby. My dad used to love writing and reading. He loved literature a lot, so I liked to read as a child. And my first love when it came to writing was actually poetry. So I wrote my first poem at 8. Oh, grandpa, up in the sky. It's just too early to say goodbye. It's like rap. Why should we when we still up in heaven, the Lord God's bosom? So that was my first poem. I wrote it when I was 8 and my grandpa passed. I have gotten to know the Lord from a very early age. So I think I was in like JS1 when I started speaking in tongues and taking God seriously. So it was only natural that my talents and my gifts and my expressions would be for him. So I would write. Then there was not really much to entertain ourselves with, unlike now that people have mobile phones and everything. But if there was like a Christian gathering, I would write poetry to be read at the event in my secondary school. And then I was in drama group, so we used to like come up with stories. We never wrote our scripts down. Like we settled down, talk about the story. When you get on stage, you freestyle. So I was in drama group, and then if my friend had a birthday, I would write them a poem. So it was things like that kind of occupied my time. I still really liked poetry at that time, but I had a friend that used to write she used to write full novels with her hand. Last time I saw, I was like, do you still write? She was like, no. I was like, why? Because she always used to finish her novels, but all the novels I started then, I never finished them. Sorry, I'm still answering how I started, Abby. So, and then when I got into the university, I would still write poetry that would be read at some events, but I now really became interested in trying to like write like stories, but I never really finished anything then too. And I studied mass communication for my first and second degrees. But one turning point in my life I didn't even know was a turning point at the time was when I graduated from school. I was sent to work in the newspaper house for NYSC. And if you know me, newspapers are not my thing. Like I like to write, but I'm not that crazy about the news. So I was like, oh my god, it's going to be so boring and this and that. But I said I made up my mind to give it my best shot. And what that season did for me, between NYSC and the next few years, altogether I spent 5 years at the newspaper, it helped me finish. It helped me become a finisher. So before, once I hit a snag or I hit like any challenge in my writing, I'll just give up. But when you're working for the media and your editor tells you this story is going in the paper tomorrow, writer's block or no writer's block, you're going to finish it. So working for the media helped me to become a finisher. And so when I resigned my job after 5 years at the newspaper to begin blogging, I was able to finish everything that I started to write. I was telling kind of stories that I wanted to tell, which are different from stories I told at the newspaper, that I had taken valuable lessons with me to what was blogging, which now became me becoming an author. So I was talking about relationships, and a lot of the book Dating Intelligently is from my old blog posts. I was blogging about him in the Bible, so a lot of the book stuff is Bible girls from my old blog posts, so things like that. And so it evolved. So it was first of all, writing and storytelling was first of all a hobby, then it became a career, and then I think it was always a calling. So it's been an interesting journey, because it was from one thing to the other. And then from blogging, I graduated into writing books full time, and then from that, people started asking me, how did you do this? So I became a book writing coach, and then I had written a book called Loving Amanda, which I knew I wanted to make into a movie, but nobody who I knew as a filmmaker was willing to take on the project. And when I was in the university, before the whole see, I told you this response would be long. It's carry plenty belles. When I was in university before graduation, I remember that my desire was to go to America and work for Tyler Perry. But like, it took my parents a lot to already send me to a private school. So America was not even, I didn't even bring it up one day. And then we had ministry going at that time. So it wasn't even something that I considered doing anymore. But I always wanted to make films. So when I wrote Loving Amanda and I couldn't really find anybody to make the film for me, I was like, let me even go to film school and start making these films that I've been wanting to make. So I went to film school. I was not crazy about film school. I went anyway, but at least I learned a couple of things from there. And then I made my first short film, Love is a Star. Then I made Joy Never After, the first season, if you can call it that. It had 3 episodes, altogether 45 minutes. And then we just moved on from there. So about a year later, we were now finally able to make Loving Amanda, which was the reason why, or one of the major reasons why I wanted to be a filmmaker in the first place. So that's how I started. This question, tough decisions. The thing is, I'm not afraid. I'm not, especially in the last few years, I'm not really somebody who gets scared easily. So if I have to make a decision, I have to make a decision. So I don't really know if I would call them tough. So I would rather say critical decisions, because those decisions kind of helped me by God's grace to be where I am now, even though I'm not yet where I want to be, but they've kind of helped me and helped my company, Nigerian Films, as a whole. I think one of them would be making the first film. Just because before I became a filmmaker, I had this idea. There was this thing, a particular bank used to do a filmmaker project. So I had this idea that I was going to contest for this particular project that this bank was holding. Then I was going to win the money from that contest. Then I was going to use the money to make my first short film, because the contest was like a 1-minute film. I was going to use money to make my first short film, after which I was going to have following, then get more money and use it to make my next film. But I entered for that contest, and for the first time ever, they didn't announce the winner of that contest that year because COVID struck. So what I now did, instead of waiting for them to get back, was to make my first actual short film, Love is a Star. And it was a critical decision, because if I was simply waiting for those guys to get back, they eventually got back with the lists a year later, and there were no winners, just top 100 of honorable mention, because COVID was dealing with everybody. So I think it was critical that I made the decision to just still go ahead, even though it was not going as planned in my head. But I want to thank God for my friend, Fruity Life CEO, Sam Ojegede, who gave me the money to make my first film. He gave me 400k out of my 600k budget that I used to make my first film. So I think just really deciding to make that first film. I think when you do something once, then it becomes easier. So making that first film and working with the resources that I had, with the people who were available to me, with people who were willing to help me, I think that really helped. That critical decision of making that first film. And I feel like a lot of filmmakers, a lot of creatives want everything to be perfect, and I get that. If you have the resources to make everything perfect, why not? But many of us just really need to start, learn from our mistakes, and move on and do better on the next project. So making that first film was a critical decision that I made. Of course, making subsequent films after that were critical decisions. But I think one that really stood out was when we did the virtual premiere for my film Loving Amanda. So we had got an offer from a particular streaming platform, but the money was not so much and we're not going to break even. So we kept on wondering, how do we make our money back for this film? If we wanted to rent out cinemas, because if cinemas didn't want to take it at that time, they said, oh, Christian films don't do well in cinemas. And even as a filmmaker, I didn't really feel like it was a cinema film as well, even though it was my film. So what we did was we had a virtual premiere for Loving Amanda. There was a time when this thing was in vogue, where everybody wanted to create their own streaming platform, and when you ask them to explain, you say, oh, it's like Netflix. But the problem with streaming platforms like that is you have to consistently pay for space in the cloud and pay your providers. I mean, you are paying them in dollars, and you may not easily be able to get subscribers who pay you every month to watch your content. So I wanted a situation where I could control access to my content, but I didn't have to be paying all those fees over and over and over again every month. So we said, okay, why don't we do a virtual premiere where a virtual cinema. So for cinemas, you go, you pay your ticket physically and you watch. And if you buy your ticket and you don't watch, like, you cannot come back next week and say, I bought tickets, or I started watching halfway, I didn't finish. So what we did was, in 2021, we had the first virtual cinema for Loving Amanda, and by God's grace, we were able to make a healthy sum from that. And then make a profit when we went to streaming. So I feel like the virtual cinema thing was really good. It was a novel idea. It took a lot of work. I'm even thinking I might do it again. Who knows? But it's really kind of helped me realize that we can continue to democratize the streaming process. I didn't want to do YouTube because I felt like if the numbers didn't add up, then I was going to run into debt, right? But just really realizing that we have a market, and we have a market that is willing to pay for what they want to see. So I think that was a critical decision. Doing the virtual premiere for Loving Amanda was a critical decision, and there have been times where we needed to take on investors. Critical decision. Times when, but there have been just at every point in time. Even as a filmmaker, there are daily, like, filmmaking, and I don't mean to sound negative, but filmmaking is sometimes a one day one trouble situation, sometimes one day 3 major troubles. So you have to really be positive, you have to trust God, you have to think on your feet, and you just have to make up your mind that, oh, we're not going to die here, we'll finish the film, we won't die, like everything will go on well. Then I think another decision that I made as a filmmaker was I didn't want people kissing in my movies if they're not married. So I think we had one kiss between now Pastor Tomiwa and his wife Dawn. But I think I don't think I'll change my mind in the future, but that's just me, and I don't judge anybody who does that. But it was a personal decision I made. So I would watch K-drama for many reasons, but including, because I know people who judge me that I just like to watch K-drama. It's true, I just like to watch K-drama, but I watch K-drama for many reasons, including I like romantic stories. How do we tell these romantic stories without being unnecessarily physical, in a way that it's still natural, it still flows, you still have all the feels? And I think that's something that we've tried to achieve with our films, where you can see the love, you can see the sparks, but they're not physical, they're not unnecessarily physical. So that's I think these are some of the decisions that I've had to make. And then financial decisions every single day, because by God's grace I run other businesses, but somehow I think there's always the decision to empty all the other accounts into the film accounts. But by God's grace, by this next year, I'm going to stop doing that in Jesus' name. If you like, don't believe me. Sorry, my team is here. They're giving me side eye. Well, yeah, so I think these are some of these decisions. If I remember others, maybe I'll share later. The truth is that I don't find no tofu. I feel like God has really helped me to have boundaries. So I'm at the other extreme where it's saying yes that now becomes, and it's because when I do say yes to something, I'm all in. So I'm very particular about what I say yes to, because I don't like really to do things by half measures. But no's that I have received no's. I don't know what it is with some. God forgive me. If you're a brand and you like having meetings, but you know that you're not going to give these people money, stop calling for meetings. Stop asking us to be online and fill form and click the link and asking us 25 questions, and you were never even planning to give us the money in the first place. Like, I don't even know. Sure, Christian creatives, I don't know. So I think I've received a number of no's, but many of them have really been for partnerships, and the ones that pay the most are the ones that you already thought it was going to come through. Like, you were so sure, you've calculated the money in your head, what you're going to do, what you're going to buy. So it can be, so a lot of no's I've received have been financial no's, either for people who wanted to partner and then change their mind last minute, or one thing or the other similar like that. But I think all in all, we're still standing, and then God has really helped us that people that said no 1 year or 2 years ago come back and say yes today, and by God's grace, people that are saying yes, that said no yesterday or today, will come back tomorrow and say yes and say a bigger yes. But what I do know is I've learned to trust God, because there are times when you think that help will come from a particular place, and it just comes from a place you least expect. And I think it's God's way of reminding us that it's his work and he's one on the throne, he's one in charge. So I've heard no's that have pained me, but the fact that I have a yes from the Lord is something that keeps me going, keeps us going, and I've seen his hand in so many ways. We started this year with maybe altogether 500,000 in all the business accounts put together, and then during the course of 2023 we ran projects into a lot of money. I can't even say it in my mouth, just a lot of money. So it's really God just providing and showing the way, and for every note that I've received, I'm thankful, because God still says yes, and he will always find a way, and promotion and help and favor always comes from him. So it can still pain, but all in all, we give God the glory. Okay, so my advice to new Christian creatives would be that, somebody asked me a question recently about how do I keep making content, and it's like people don't want it, and I said that's the biggest lie. There's a tendency for us to believe that people need our content, but they don't want it. People need our content and they want it. The reason why I know that is because I've seen people pay to watch my films, and I've seen people show up to watch my films, and not just my films, but films of other Christian creatives. So ask yourself this question: whenever you complain that if you see the rubbish I just watched on TV yesterday, I wish there was better content, are there not at least 70% of voices in that same room echoing what you said? So many times when you complain and say, I don't like what I was on TV, there's always somebody else in the room. In fact, there are always many people in the room who say the same thing with you. So it means that globally there is a yearning for cleaner, better content. And I feel like we need to arm ourselves with the knowledge that people need and want what we carry. And when you do that, it affects the way you create. It affects the way you reach out to people to fund. It affects the sacrifices that you choose to make, because you're not just creating something to be faithful, you're creating something to be impactful. So I feel like we must know that people need the content that we carry, that people actually need clean, relatable content. I remember, and one way I study human behavior and I do a lot of research is to read the comment section on Instagram. And I remember seeing something somewhere, and someone said, I'm an atheist, but I'm going to save up to send my children to Christian school because of what's going on in schools today. The person was talking about, it was when I post about how they sent a child to school, and the child identified as a cat, so they put the child in a cage or something really weird like that. I'm really like, no, the way the world is going crazy, so I need a sane place for my children, and that's people who are not even believers. So the biggest lie you can tell yourself is that people don't want what you carry. They want it, they need it, and just going with God to fulfill that mandate of making content cleaner, more inspiring to people. The slogan of my company, Nigerian Films, is inspiring stories creatively told. I think that's so important. Another thing I would tell you is that stories have a way of targeting our minds, or of changing our hearts by targeting our minds. And I'll give you an example. There are many of you here who watched this movie, Money Heist, and If they asked you, do you have sympathy for thieves? Do you like thieves? You say, no, I don't like thieves. Stealing is bad. Yeah. But when you're watching Money Heist, because of the way the story has been told, because of the way the characters have been humanized, you have like an affiliation with them. You don't want them to be caught. You don't want them to die. You don't want them to be shot. You want them to run away and spend the money because of the story. So it means that the same way, the reverse can also be the case. There are people who may not really care about God or care about Christianity or care about our values, but when you tell a good story, it cuts across board and you're able to reach them that way. That's another thing I would like to tell younger. I'm still a young Christian storyteller, so younger Christian storytellers. Another thing I would like to say, and I always say this, is that excellence is so important. So you may not be able to afford every single thing that you want to do, but do the very best that you can afford. Stretch and then consistently improve, because people will believe in you when you have first believed in yourself. And believing in yourself is not just using mouth. Oh, I've believed in myself. What have you built based on your faith and your belief in yourself? So when you go for meetings and you're saying, oh, come on, invest in my phone, people are like, okay, so what else have you done? And you're like, oh, I need someone to invest in me to even do something in the first place. But look around you and build on the resources you do have available. Who in your church can handle a camera? Who in your space is a fair music producer? And then start from there. Hone your skill, improve on your skill, hone your skill. Another thing that I've learned is to focus on what I'm good at. So I don't really like directing as much, but I'm a good producer and I'm a good writer. I don't like acting. So because it's my film, doesn't mean I have to be acting. So just really figuring out what you are good at and then focusing and really majoring on the major will help you. The truth is that when you first start out, you are so many things in one, and that's perfectly okay. But as you begin to work, figure out what you are good at and what you need to focus and improve upon. And then of course collaborations will help. Another thing I would say for a Christian storyteller or Christian creative is try not to take advantage of people. So I know that you expect people to support you when you're doing something, but how many people are you supporting? It's the first time you're messaging somebody when you finally made your first short film. That's the first time you're ever messaging them so they can talk about it. When they did something, where were you? Did you talk about it? Did you do your best to support them? So I feel like we must be careful that we don't just take advantage of people. Yes, make good use of your connections and your relationships, but don't just take advantage of people, and work with the resources you do have. Know that people need and want what you carry. And then I feel like we also need to be more intentional about the business side of things, because of course you will do a lot of free content, and that's one decision I made at the beginning, where for the first 2 years we did not make a profit from film. For the first 2 years we're just making things, and people like to consume, right? But I feel like the more you grow, I always say that you can't really take over an industry without the economics. So the more you grow, the more you need to find ways to monetize what you do. Not because you want to be rich, nothing wrong wanting to be rich or wanting to be successful, but so that you can consistently. I don't want to make one film and then be broke for 3 years. I want to be able to churn out content the way these worldly people just churn out content. I hear there's one now that they did where they said Jesus Christ was a fraud. So we need to constantly, it's not enough to be against something, you have to be for something. And when you're for something, your efforts have to be there, your money has to be there. We have to consistently make content that competes at a global level with the lies they're trying to tell. Because if we are telling the truth, then we must be louder. Influence doesn't belong to the person who's telling the truth. Influence belongs to the bolder, louder person. And so we who have the truth of God's word, the truth of his values, the truth of his gospel, and the truth about marriage and life and everything, family, we need to be louder. So I would tell you to get up, get better, and fight for space. Not even against other Christian creatives. Like, it's great if you have the best Christian film, but let's have the best films. So that we can even reach people that would otherwise not have paid the name of Jesus attention, but because of what we are doing, then they can pay attention to the name that we carry. You need to enter whatever industry knowing why you're there. I'm there for the name of Jesus. So when I know why I'm there, it kind of just, compromise is not really something that you want to still struggle with. So I think I remember speaking to a believer who's a comedian, and he just told himself, he said, even if I will not be as big as some people, right? So I think he just made up his mind that I'm going to do my best, but even if I'm not as big, I won't compromise. So I feel for some people is success at all costs, but if it's Jesus at all costs for you, then it's easier. Then it turns out that he turned out one of the biggest still, despite saying that. So God knows how to bless and reward his own, but we have to learn not to look for reward first, but to look to him and for his interests first, and he will take care of the rest. Idea is it's money I need to be poor. I think that really exposing yourself to creative material, both so I watch a lot of movies, and I don't watch just Christian films, but I try to keep my movie watching as clean as possible. So I think really exposing yourself to, if you're a musician, good music; if you're an author, good books. Really exposing yourself, listening to people, observing your environment, prayer, and then just because sometimes when I pray in tongues, just some ideas that come upon me strong. Like if I even have several ideas to choose from and I'm praying, many times it becomes clear what I should work on next. So I think there's that. In fact, I think just it's more of how do I streamline so that I can know what to work on with the resources I do have available. But yeah, God helps. He does help. Life's changed. There was something on Twitter when they were asking people to share their salvation story, and someone talked about how she had watched Loving Amanda and it made her give her heart to Jesus, and that was a rewarding moment. And there are people who maybe thought that they were less than, or that God didn't love them, or there are people who had issues in their marriages and what joy never after. And we're going to have more testimonies like that as more of our content comes out. We made good content this year, even though it's not out this year. So I think it really is the lives changed, and then it's rewarding to see more and more believers put their money where their faith is. Because when we first started, before we were able to get people to fund or investors, or a lot of it was crowdfunded by people who just said, you know what, I'm going to give XYZ to this project, and I would forever be grateful for them. So just I think those things really, the lives changed, and then the impact we are beginning to make on the industry, people are beginning to pay more attention to us, and that's beautiful. Okay, so hi, my name is Youre, and the Lord's Storyteller. I'm a Christian creative. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have more questions about this, or you think I should create more content, please let me know in the comment section. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like this video and share it. Subscribe, share, like, click all the buttons so I don't zip up. Even if you don't click, I will not zip up my mouth. That's mouth, I want to zip up. But just like this video, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thank you.